Be seated. Today, if you haven't noticed, is about weddings. If you were here earlier, you got to see a wonderful little clip that I found called White Symphony, because everything was white. And it also showed a wedding on a beach, and that's what we're going to talk about, our weddings and other things today, fun things. So today, weddings can be as public or private as the bride and bridegroom want. They can also be as simple or ornate as desired. And from cathedral settings to beaches, weddings are done. Some even take the saying about having a marriage made in heaven to the extreme by having a sky wedding with the wedding party arrayed in parachutes. While the traditional church wedding has become less and less popular, we who miss that need to remember that the first wedding that ever took place was not in a building made by human hands. The first wedding took place in a beautiful garden known as the Garden of Eden. The first bride and groom, Eve and Adam, wore no special wedding clothes. In fact, we are told they wore no clothing at all. Not something I recommend for today. However, this simple garden wedding was attended by the local population, not of people, but of various animals, birds, and other creatures. They were all invited. And there was no local clergy or justice of the peace to do the ceremony, no papers to sign. Instead, the God of creation was the one who joined the first human couple, male and female, together in holy matrimony. And of the first wedding feast, there were all the fruits, nuts, and vegetables from the Garden of Eden that Adam and Eve could eat. Because at that point, we were not allowed to have meat. That's why the animals loved us. However, there was no wine at the first wedding. As humans cultivated and grew their own fruits and vegetables, did winemaking begin. According to archaeological findings, the first wine produced was in the area now known as the country of Georgia. And I have to make sure I state country because I love the state of Georgia, since that's where my kinfolk are from. But it was in the country of Georgia around 7000 BC. And down through the ages, wine became an important part of religious ceremonies, including weddings. Which brings us to the gospel for today. Jesus attends a wedding in Cana, where the wine runs out. Now, such a gaffe would be a major embarrassment, not only for the wedding couple, but for the host family who was responsible for the wedding feast. And weddings in Jesus' time were not private affairs, but a community event. The entire village was invited, along with all the relatives and friends' friends, both far and near. Planning such an event took at least a year. It was very expensive, but they all felt it was well worth it. Wine. Remember wine that wasn't there in the Garden of Eden? Well, wine became an important part of the wedding ceremony, and also especially in the feasting that followed. So much so that the best wine was always served first. And the less expensive wine would be served last, after the drinking had gotten well underway and the guests didn't know really or care what they were drinking. Anyone been to parties like that? Oh, we have some hands waving back there. Some enthusiastic hands. Okay. Let us know where you're partying next. Well, when Jesus' mother heard about the problem, she went to the one she knew could solve it. Mary, Jesus' mother, told her son to take care of the problem. even when Jesus tried to convince her that the timing was not right. Mary, his mom, insisted, which put Jesus in a quandary, because one of the commandments, honor thy father and thy mother, even though he tried to talk her out of it, he had to obey her. From the Gospel of John we read, I'm going to read to you from the Message, which gives a little nice turn to it. When they started running low on wine at the wedding banquet, Jesus' mother told him, "They're just about out of wine." And Jesus said, "Is that any of our business, Mother? Yours or mine? This isn't my time. Don't push me." Yeah, it's in there. Don't push me. Whoa. Okay. When you love to have been his mom. Well, for Mary, she just ignored him. Good mom. Instead, she tells Jesus to solve the problem of the wine shortage, and so she says, she just ignores him, and the scriptures confirm that she already kind of knew that he could solve it, because perhaps Jesus had taken care of a similar problem like this at home, in private, when no one else knew. And they kept it secret. Anybody know about family secrets? How would you like to have been in Jesus' family? There was a lot of secrets going on there we probably don't know about, although there has been some gospels written that weren't allowed into the canons that you can read for fun. But getting back to the wine, and the problem they had here with no wine, what Mary did was that she knew that something had to be done. And she knew that Jesus was the one to do it. There were no wine stores to drop by and pick up a whole bunch of wine for all these guests. And so she just ignores her son and turns to the servants. And John writes of Mary, she went ahead anyway, telling the servants, "Whatever he tells you, do it." Mary's words to the servants of the house need to perhaps be adopted as our own instructions in living our everyday lives. Perhaps this needs to be our personal motto. Whatever he tells you, do it. It is really quite simple, yet so hard to do. See, our human tendencies just want to get in the way. And too often what Jesus tells us seems impossible, because we see circumstances through our own human eyes. And through our own human eyes, it seems impossible, such as, "I want you to love your neighbor." What? My neighbor? The one that makes a racket all night so I can't sleep? Are you kidding me? And to forgive our enemies. Oh, the ones who are attacking us. The ones that we have to now take our shoes off to go on an airplane. See, it's only when we listen and obey the voice of Christ that we can even begin to see miracles happen in our lives. No matter how difficult it may seem in the physical, we have to remember that Jesus sees the miraculous as real as we see the physical with our own eyes. Jesus looks beyond what is to what can be. Earthly circumstances do not hold him back from seeing the possible where all others see the impossible. So if we want to see miracles in our lives, we have to be willing to see things as Jesus sees them. We need to listen and take heed to the words of his mother and do whatever he tells us to do, just like the servants did. John writes, Jesus ordered the servants, "Fill the pots with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Now fill your pitchers and take them to the host," Jesus said, and they did. They didn't even ask questions. It just says, and they did. No arguments either. And they did. When the host tasted the water that had become wine, he didn't know what had just happened, but the servants, of course, knew. And he called out to the bridegroom, "Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now." When Jesus turned the water into wine, not only was the wedding feast saved, but something even more important took place. The glory of Christ was revealed to the servants and to Jesus' disciples. When the wedding in Cana took place, it had only been 3 days since Jesus had called his first disciples. The first ones had followed Jesus because they heard John the Baptist saying that Jesus was the Lamb of God, which meant that Jesus was the long-awaited Messiah. Now, none of them had seen Jesus do any miracles, yet in faith, they had chosen to follow him. Well, any doubts the disciples may have had disappeared as they sat at that feast and drank the new wine Jesus had just created before their very eyes. And their search for the Messiah had come to an end. They had found him in Jesus of Nazareth, the son of a carpenter. John writes, his disciples believed in him. You know, perhaps we could actually learn a lesson here for ourselves. When the old wine in our lives begins to run out, instead of using our energy complaining, which we all seem to like to do, at least most of us that I know of. I know I really enjoy it. Oh, y'all don't enjoy that, I'm sorry. Forgive me for even thinking that. But instead of complaining, what if we did something different? Something unusual, especially for a Christian. Like, turn to Jesus. And actually begin to expect the unexpected. You know, then we too may actually find our lives being filled with the new wine that only Christ can give. They say miracles don't happen anymore, but I don't think that's true. I believe that miracles still happen today if we are willing to heed Mary's words. Whatever he tells you to do, do it.